The story kicks off with a guy named John Brickner walking out of prison. He'd been locked up for killing someone, but got released after 4 years, even though he was supposed to serve 7. Now that he's free, John wants to turn things around. He moves to Seattle and lands a job doing construction work. One evening, he's hanging out at a bar and sees a server named Frankie getting messed with by a group of 3 troublemakers. John doesn't just sit there, he steps in and puts one of the guys in a painful hold, then tells the guy to apologize to Frankie. That's enough to scare them off. The bar owner, impressed by John's quick action, offers him a job as a bouncer. John agrees, and now he's working 2 gigs, building during the day and guarding the bar at night. The next night on the job, John tries to break up a fight between 2 rowdy drunks, but they just start back up again. So, John's forced to rough them up a bit to calm things down. Frankie's boyfriend, Reno, happens to be watching and is impressed. Reno gives John his card and says he's got a business offer, but John turns it down for now. 2 jobs are enough. Later on, while John's at his construction job, a woman named Veronica walks up to him. Turns out, she's the widow of the man John killed. Surprisingly, she's the one who petitioned for his early release from prison. But she didn't do it for free. Her daughter Sarah needs a heart transplant, and she wants John to cough up $250,000 to help pay for it. Feeling guilty and wanting to do the right thing, John goes home and counts what little money he has. It's nowhere near enough. Realizing he needs serious cash, he tracks down Frankie to find Reno again. Frankie leads him to a packed, noisy building. Inside, John finds out Reno runs underground fights, where people bet big money. Reno wants John to be one of his fighters. But since he's still on parole, John says no, even after Reno tries to convince him. The next day, John goes to see Veronica and says he can't get the money. She's not having it. She reminds him of the promise he made in prison, to do whatever it takes to make up for what he did. Her yelling wakes up Sarah, who looks super sick and fragile. Seeing her like that makes John rethink everything. He tells Veronica he'll try to find the money somehow. Things take a turn for the worse at John's day job. He makes a tiny mistake and gets fired on the spot. But right after, his boss collapses from a heart attack. John jumps in and saves him with CPR. That night, John heads back to the fight arena just to watch. Frankie and Reno are already there, but the fighter Reno had lined up gets badly hurt and can't go on. With no one else to step in, John volunteers to fight. But before he can even start, a guy named Mr. Wolf shows up demanding money Reno owes him. Reno promises to pay after the match. Finally, the fight begins, and John holds his own. In the second round, weapons are allowed. His opponent comes at him with a steel rod and lands a solid hit, but John pushes through, beats the guy barehanded, and wins. In the locker room, Reno pays him the prize money, but John gives some of it to the injured fighter he replaced. A few days later, Reno and Frankie show up while John's out jogging. Reno offers him another fight. Since John still needs a ton of cash for Sarah's surgery, he agrees. Reno even invites John to crash at his place to stay focused. Before the next match, Reno and John meet a guy named Deacon at a diner. He's the one who oversees the fights. They try to work out the details, but there are 2 problems. Reno's broke and can't cover the entry fee, and John's still on parole. After some convincing, Deacon agrees to let John fight. Reno even pawns his late dad's championship ring to help fund the match. Later, Reno takes John to meet a shady guy named Nestor. But things go sideways fast. Nestor's crew tries to take Reno out because of his unpaid debts. John jumps in and offers to fight instead. He makes a deal. If he wins, Reno walks free. But if he loses, John will take on the full debt. They square off in a 10-minute match with $10,000 on the line. John goes all in, trading punches and kicks with Nestor's guy. It's a brutal fight, but John dominates and knocks the other guy out cold, saving Reno from serious trouble. So, John ended up winning that fight, and he and Reno left right after. While they were heading home, John got a call from Veronica. Her daughter had collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. John dropped everything and hurried over. When he saw Sarah lying there all pale and weak, it really hit him hard. It made him even more determined to do whatever it took to help her get that surgery. Back at Reno's place later that night, John overheard Reno and Frankie having a heated argument. Frankie was accusing Reno of using John just to pay off his debts. Reno got defensive, saying John wasn't some hero, just an ex-con who wasn't as great as Frankie thought. He even accused her of having feelings for John. Right then, John stepped out of the shadows and headed straight to his room without saying a word. Later on, when John was gearing up for another fight, Reno apologized for the stuff he said. John didn't say much, but he kept winning fight after fight. Still, even with all the wins, the money wasn't enough to get him into the big match against the reigning champ, Sharp. John's reputation was growing so fast that some fighters actually backed out of scheduled matches. They didn't want to take the risk of getting beaten by him. Reno didn't seem too worried. He said it was bound to happen and promised he'd find new challengers. One night at a bar, John noticed two guys staring at him from a parked car. Turns out, they worked for a shady businessman named Veltz. He had loaned money to Reno. At the same time, Reno was off somewhere gambling when Veltz's men cornered him. Reno begged them for more time. They gave him a week, but made it very clear. If he didn't pay up, they'd hurt Frankie. John eventually had a brutal fight with a tough opponent from Mexico. It was intense, but he came out on top again. That night, John was out celebrating with Reno and Frankie, and he asked Reno why his fight with Sharp hadn't been arranged yet. Reno explained that since John had become so popular, the betting stakes had gone way up, and they still didn't have enough money for that kind of bet. Just as John was trying to process all this, he got another call from Veronica. He rushed over to her place and found her passed out. A note nearby explained that her daughter's donor match had fallen through, and the heartbreak had pushed her over the edge. John acted fast and took her to the hospital. While waiting there, John opened up to Frankie, finally telling her why he was doing all this. It wasn't just about fighting. It was about making things right for Sarah, the daughter of the man he'd killed. Not long after, Veronica woke up, and John reassured her he was doing everything he could to get the money. Meanwhile, Reno went back to the pawn shop, hoping to buy back his dad's ring. Unfortunately, it had already been sold to someone else for a much higher price. Reno was crushed, but there was nothing he could do. Then one night, John got into another match, this one set up by Reno and Nestor with $150,000 on the line. Before the fight began, John asked Nestor to tell his fighter to back out, not wanting to risk killing the guy. Nestor refused, so instead of going through with it, John walked away and forfeited. That gave Nestor the win. Around the same time, Veltz's thugs showed up and roughed up Reno for not paying what he owed. The next day, John was followed again by Veltz's men and taken to a fancy house. There, he met Veltz in person and realized the guy was actually the father-in-law of John's old construction boss, the one whose life John had saved during a heart attack. Because of that, Veltz said he owed John a favor. John made two requests. First, the $150,000 for Sarah's operation. Second, for Veltz to wipe out Reno's debts. But Veltz said he'd only agree to one of those things. John thought it over and chose to help Reno get out from under all that debt. After that, John packed up and told Reno and Frankie he was moving out. Reno was genuinely grateful for everything John had done. Not long after, Reno got a call. Someone had finally put up the money for John to go up against Sharp. That same night, John headed to the arena to face the champ. Sharp was no joke, tough as nails and not easy to beat, but John gave it everything he had. Later, at the hospital, Veronica came running down the hallway with news. The funds for Sarah's surgery had finally come through. John showed up too, just to be there and offer support. Veronica was beyond thankful. Reno and Frankie also showed up, and John surprised them by handing back the ring Reno had lost. He'd secretly tracked it down and bought it back. And that wrapped things up. Thanks for hanging out and checking out the recap. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button for more. Catch you in the next one.